On May 8, 1945, the war in Europe ended with Germany's unconditional surrender. But Germany did not simply lose the war. For several years, it effectively disappeared as an independent state. Its government had collapsed. Its armed forces were dissolved. Its major cities were shattered. Millions of people were homeless, displaced, missing, imprisoned, or trying to return from battlefields and camps scattered across Europe. Foreign armies controlled every road, railway, factory,
In the aftermath,
and government office.
the railways were a lifeline,
The country that had tried to
guiding
dominate
families
Europe was
toward
now
recovery.
occupied by the powers that had defeated it. Yet the most important struggle over Germany was only beginning. The United States, Britain, France,
As the
and
passengers
the Soviet Union
arrived,
agreed
weary
that German
but hopeful,
militarism and Nazism
local
had to be
volunteers were
destroyed.
there to offer a helping
They
hand
did not
and a
agree on
moment
what
of
should
kindness.
replace them. Within 4 years, one defeated country would become two rival states. Berlin would turn into the most dangerous pressure point of the Cold War. And the ruins of Nazi Germany would become the place where the wartime alliance between East and West finally broke apart.
In the lean years following the
So
war,
what actually
currency
happened to
often meant
Germany
little.
after World War
A
II?
cigarette, however, could buy you a meal,
When the fighting
or
ended,
in this case,
Germany
a
was
much-needed
divided into
potato.
4
In
occupation
the aftermath
zones.
of the war, the Trümmerfrauen,
The
or
Americans
rubble
controlled
women,
the South,
formed human
the British
chains
the
to
Northwest,
clear the debris
the
and
French
begin
the
rebuilding,
Southwest,
brick
and the
by
Soviet
brick.
Union the East. Berlin, although located deep inside the Soviet zone, was also divided into 4 sectors. On a map, this arrangement looked temporary and orderly. On the ground, it was either. The country's transportation system
You
was
three
damaged,
head to the right for the
housing was
shelter.
scarce, food
The next
production
group
had
can continue
collapsed,
straight to
and
the
local
station.
government barely functioned. Large areas of Berlin,
The converted
Dresden,
Civic Hall
Hamburg,
provided temporary
Cologne,
shelter,
and other cities had
offering
been
a
reduced to
brief
rubble.
respite for families
Civilians
displaced by the
destroyed
conflict.
buildings for fuel, clothing, and anything that could be traded. The official currency had lost much of its value, so cigarettes, food, and household goods often became tools of exchange. The first post-war crisis was not ideological. It was physical survival.
The shelter markers
Germany
guided the
also
initial
became the
relief
center
efforts.
of one of the largest
Timber
population
was distributed
movements in
based
European
on need
history.
as the community began.
Former forced laborers, prisoners of war,
prioritize food
concentration
distribution to
camp
the southern
survivors,
regions
and
first.
refugees moved
But
across the
housing is
country in
critical
different
before
directions.
With the factory designated
Millions
for
of ethnic
rebuilding,
Germans fled
attention
or were
turned to the
expelled from
security arrangements
territories in
along the new
Eastern
border.
Europe and from
The
lands
delicate
east of the
balance of
new
power
odor,
was constantly
Nysa
studied.
border.
50 valves accounted for.
They arrived in the
Tally the gears
occupation
next.
zones carrying what
This
little
crate
they
is
could
marked for
transport.
reuse in the western sector.
Many found
Move
that
it
the
along.
towns receiving them had no spare
Reconstruction
houses,
efforts
jobs,
were swift.
or food.
Here we see vital
At the
industrial
same time,
equipment being loaded
Jewish
for
survivors
transport,
and other
a sign
displaced
of
persons
progress
waited in
amidst the
camps,
ruins.
unable or
The
unwilling
Land
to
Reform
return
Act
to
sought
communities
to
that
break
had
up
been
the larger
destroyed or had
states,
become hostile.
redistributing the
The
farmland
war
to
was
those
over,
who worked it.
but Europe was still filled with people who had no
The
secure
new
home.
survey line divided
The
the
Allied
old
powers
field,
entered Germany
bringing
with
both
several
hope
shared
and
objectives.
apprehension to the villagers.
They wanted to demilitarize the country so it could not begin another war. They wanted to dismantle Nazi institutions, remove committed Nazis from positions of authority, prosecute major criminals, decentralize political and economic power, and rebuild public life on a different foundation. These aims are sometimes summarized as demilitarization, denazification, democratization, and decentralization.
Citizens waited patiently as
words
clerks
concealed major
meticulously sorted the
disagreements.
day's petitions.
The
Once
Soviet
reviewed, the
Union had
applications
suffered
were stamped,
destruction on a
signifying
scale
official
unmatched by the
approval.
Western
With the
Allies
shortage
and
of qualified
demanded
teachers
reparations,
acute, the
security,
review office
and
processed
political
assignments
control in
quickly.
Eastern Europe.
Many faced daunting
The
tasks
United
in the
States
reconstruction.
increasingly believed that Europe could not recover if Germany remained permanently weak and economically broken. Britain wanted a balance of power that
The
prevented
Daily
both renewed German
Bulletin,
aggression
prepared by
and
the
complete
editors,
Soviet dominance.
ensured the community stayed
France
informed
feared a
during the
restored German
reconstruction
state,
efforts.
but also depended on the recovery
The
of
factory
European
roars
trade.
back to life as the rollers
Each
engage.
occupying power,
Carefully,
therefore,
the workers
began
guide the
shaping
sheet
its zone
metal,
according
watching
to
the
its own
gauges
interests.
closely as the first panels are
The
pressed.
first visible attempt to confront the Nazi past came at Nuremberg. Beginning in late 1945, senior officials of the defeated regime were
Life
brought
in the
before an
cities
international
slowly returned to
tribunal
normal.
and charged with crimes
Families
against
gathered,
peace,
finding
war
comfort
crimes,
in the simple
and crimes
routines
against
of a
humanity.
post-war world.
The trials created an important principle. Government leaders could be held personally responsible for actions carried out in the name of the state.
With the new
Documents,
economic plan,
films, and
goods
testimony
flowed
exposed
steadily
the
into the
organized
central
nature of
warehouses,
Nazi conquest
ensuring
and
efficient
mass
distribution to all sectors.
But Nuremberg
After
did
the
not
war,
solve the
the
larger
reopening
problem
of local shops
responsibility.
brought a welcome sense of normalcy.
Millions of Germans had
Families
belonged
could
to
once
Nazi
again browse
organizations,
for everyday
worked in
necessities.
institutions controlled by the regime, benefited from persecution, served in the armed forces, or adapted to dictatorship without becoming senior criminals. The occupation governments tried to classify people according to their level of involvement. In practice, denazification
This ambitious
was
recovery
inconsistent.
diagram connected the
Some
disparate
officials
regions of
were
Europe,
removed.
symbolizing a new
Some were
era
in
of
prison.
cooperation and economic
Many
growth.
received limited penalties. As the Cold War intensified and trained administrators, teachers, judges, engineers, and police officers were urgently needed, former
As the
members
morning
of Nazi
shift begins,
institutions
the
returned
industrial
to public and
heartland
professional
awakens.
life.
Across the district,
Germany was
the
forced to
chimneys of
confront the
the
crimes
journey
of the
west
regime,
symbolized
but the
a new
confrontation
beginning for
was
the young
incomplete
family,
and uneven.
leaving the past behind
The
on the
economy
platform.
created another conflict among the Allies. At first, the occupation policies emphasized reparations and restrictions on German industrial power. Factories were dismantled,
With the war
equipment
finally
was
over,
transferred
the
abroad,
focus shifted
and
to
production
rebuilding.
in industries
This
connected to
required a new
warfare was
currency,
limited.
printed with
In
meticulous
the
as the old
Soviet
bundles
zone,
were opened.
industrial
Citizens
machinery was
exchanged
removed
their
on a
worn
large
notes for the
scale,
new
while
abstract
land
currency,
reform broke up
bringing
major
stability
estates
to the
and
post-war
redistributed
economy.
property.
With the
Political
return of
parties
stability,
were permitted,
the
but
shops
the
were
Soviet
quickly
occupation
restocked,
authorities soon
bringing
pushed the
much-needed
Communist
supplies
Party
to
and
the
Social
community.
Democratic Party in the
With
east
the
into a
introduction of
forced
the new
merger,
currency,
creating the
stability
Socialist Unity
returned.
Party.
Trade was
In
calm,
the western zones,
and the market
the
found
Americans
its balance.
and British gradually moved
While
in
the initial
opposite
currency
direction.
was standardized, the
They
eastern
concluded
sector
that a
soon
starving,
introduced its own
economically
reforms,
paralyzed
resulting in
Germany
two
would
distinct
destabilize
economies and a
all of
divided
Europe
city.
and require
Since
endless foreign support.
the Soviet blockade
In
cut off all
January
ground routes to West
1947,
Berlin,
the American and
leaving the
British zones
sectors
were combined
isolated.
economically into what became known as Bizonia. The French zone later joined the developing Western system. Germany was no longer being managed as one economic unit. East and West were beginning to separate. The widening division reflected a larger transformation.
As the winter wore on,
During the war,
city's reserves
the United
dwindled.
States, Britain,
Warehouse
and the
managers
Soviet Union
meticulously
had
tracked the
cooperated
remaining
because they
coal
faced a
and
common
flour.
enemy.
The ground routes are
Once
completely
Nazi
blocked.
Germany disappeared,
We must rely
their
on air
conflicting
transport.
political systems
Move
and
the
security
planes along the
goals
northern
moved to the
corridor
center.
immediately.
The Soviet Union sought friendly governments along its western border and viewed Western economic integration as a threat. The Western powers feared that economic collapse would strengthen communist movements and expand Soviet influence. Germany became the testing ground for both strategies. In the West, American aid through the European Recovery Program, commonly called the Marshall Plan, was designed to revive production, trade, and political stability. In the Soviet zone, economic and political institutions were reorganized
With
under
the final
socialist
adjustments
control.
made, the moment
Both
of the
sides
test
claimed
run
they were preventing
approaches,
another
crucial
catastrophe.
for the next phase of
Each believed
aviation.
the other was
As the
constructing
planes
a hostile
delivered their
Germany.
precious cargo,
The
citizens
crisis
worked
came in
quickly to distribute
1948.
the coal, bringing
The old
much-needed
Reichsmark
warmth
had
back
become
to the
nearly
homes.
useless, and black markets dominated daily life. On June 20th, the Western occupation zones introduced a new currency, the Deutsche Mark. Shops that had seemed empty suddenly displayed goods because sellers were willing to accept money they trusted. The reform helped restore normal trade, but it also accelerated the political division of the country. The Soviet authorities introduced a
airlift
separate
continued
currency
by
in their
air,
zone and
the city
objected when the
endured.
Western currency
Months
was
later,
extended
the lifting
into
of
the
the
western
barrier
sectors
signaled
of
the
Berlin.
resumption of vital ground
The
transport.
dispute was about more than banknotes.
The wheels turned
It was
once
about
more.
who would control the
With the
future of the
resumption of
city
tram
and whether the
services,
Western powers
the city
could
begins
maintain
its
a
journey
political
toward
presence
recovery.
inside Soviet-controlled Eastern Germany. On June 24, 1948, the Soviet Union blocked road, rail, and water access to West Berlin. More than 2 million people depended on supplies from outside the city. The Western powers now faced a
As
dangerous
the city
choice.
slowly began to stir,
They could abandon their
citizens
sectors,
weary but
attempt to
hopeful
force open the
lined up
routes
to
and risk armed
participate in the
conflict,
rebuild.
or find another way to keep the city alive. They chose the air. American and British aircraft began delivering food,
We must
coal,
begin the reorganization
medicine, and
immediately.
other essential
According
supplies.
to the new district lines, this
At
area
first,
requires
the
our attention
operation
first.
appeared
Yes,
almost
the growth projections
impossible.
are highest here.
A modern city required thousands of tons of material every day. Weather, maintenance, limited runways, and the constant
The
risk
new
of
centralized
accidents threatened the
administrative
system.
chart marked a significant
But
step
the
in the
airlift
post-war
became increasingly
reorganization.
organized.
Approved by the committee, it streamlined
Aircraft
the flow
arrived
of
in
command.
carefully
In the
controlled
post-war era,
sequences,
these
unloaded
publicly managed
rapidly,
factories were
and
the
returned
bedrock of
west
the new
for another
economy.
flight.
Every worker's
The blockade
contribution
was
was accounted
intended to
for
make
at the
the
end of the
western
day.
position
As the
in
gates
Berlin
opened at dawn,
unsustainable.
the industrial district
Instead,
expanded rapidly.
it turned West Berlin
Workers
into a
arrived
symbol
by
of
bicycle and
resistance to
bus,
Soviet
fueling
pressure.
the new economic boom.
The Soviet
As the market
Union lifted
economy
the blockade
flourished
in
the
May
West, the East
1949,
relied on central
but the
planning.
political damage
Yet,
could not
as
be
evening
reversed.
fell, families on both
The
sides
common
gathered for
occupation
dinner.
of Germany had failed. Only days after the blockade ended, the western zones became the Federal Republic of Germany, usually called West Germany. Its basic law created a federal parliamentary democracy with protections intended to prevent the concentration of power that
As
had
the nation
destroyed the
moved
Weimar
forward,
Republic.
families often
Bonn
found
became
themselves
the provisional
separated by
capital.
distance, relying
Konrad
on the railways
Adenauer
to
emerged
connect.
as the first chancellor and tied the new state closely to the Western powers. In October 1949, the Soviet occupation zone became
The
the German
arrival of a
Democratic
new
Republic,
refrigerator
or East
symbolized
Germany.
progress,
Its
bringing
leaders
comfort and
described it as an
convenience to the
anti-fascist worker
post-war
state,
home.
but political
With the war
power
behind
was
them, the
concentrated
focus
in the
turned to the
Socialist
future.
Unity Party.
These
and
new
supported
housing
by
blocks
Soviet
symbolized
authority.
progress, providing
Berlin
modern
remained
homes for
divided,
thousands.
even though
Take
West
care of
Berlin
yourself
was
out
surrounded
west.
by East
Don't
German
forget
territory.
us. Goodbye.
By the end of 1949, Germany had not been restored. It had been divided into two competing answers to the same question: what kind of society should emerge from the ruins of dictatorship and war? West Germany moved toward parliamentary democracy, a market economy, and integration with the United States and Western
The
Europe.
parade ground symbolized a deeper
East
division.
Germany moved
Soon,
toward one-party
neighboring countries
socialist
joined
rule,
opposing alliance
state
networks,
ownership,
with Germany
and
becoming
alignment
the
with the
central
Soviet
front in a
Union.
polarized Europe.
Both
In
governments claimed
1948,
to
the
represent
Soviet
the German
Union
nation.
blocked all land routes
Neither
into West
initially
Berlin.
accepted the division
The
as
only way
permanent.
to supply the city was by
Families,
air.
railways, industries, and cities were split by a border created by the growing Cold War. The contrast between the two states would become sharper
The new
during
structures
the 1950s.
rise alongside the scars of
West
the conflict.
Germany experienced rapid
Life
economic
returns to the
recovery,
streets
supported
as the
by
city
currency
rebuilds.
reform, foreign assistance,
While the street
skilled
bustles
labor,
with signs of
industrial
recovery,
capacity,
the
and
distant
access to
checkpoint
Western
serves
markets.
as a stark reminder
East Germany
of the
also
division.
rebuilt,
As the
but
post-war
it carried
occupation
heavy reparations
continued,
burdens
the four
and faced the
administrative
loss
zones
of many
gradually
citizens who
merged,
moved west in
creating a
search of
stark
greater
division
political
across the
and economic
landscape.
freedom. The division eventually produced rival armies, rival alliances, and one of the most fortified borders in the world.
Though the
But in
framework was
1945,
established, the
none of this
cooperative
was
spirit
inevitable.
proved fleeting.
The Allies had originally
Joint
spoken
Commission
about
adjourned
governing Germany
indefinitely.
together. The split emerged gradually from
The
incompatible
city of
security
Berlin,
fears,
deep
economic
within
policies,
Soviet-occupied
political
Germany,
systems,
quickly
and
became the
decisions
focal
made
point.
during
The map of
repeated
Europe
crises.
was redrawn, centering
What
on a
happened to
divided
Germany after World War
As the
II
Iron
was
Curtain
therefore
fell,
more than
two distinct
occupation and
economic spheres
reconstruction.
emerged. Faced with
Germany
the
became
blockade,
the
the
place
Allies
where the
responded
alliance
not
that
with
defeated
force,
Hitler
but with an
transformed into the
unprecedented
Cold War.
logistical effort,
The
supplying
country
the
was
city
punished,
entirely by
dismantled,
air.
reorganized, and rebuilt, but not as a single nation. The Western zones became a democracy tied to the Atlantic world. The
As the
Soviet
city
zone
rebuilt,
became a
so
socialist
too
state
did the
tied to
lives
Moscow.
within it. The
Berlin
railway
remained
worker,
trapped
the
between
teacher,
them.
and the displaced
The
families.
war had ended,
The
yet
city
Germany
was
was
split,
still the center
a
of
harsh
Europe's
line
most
dividing
dangerous
neighbors and
confrontation.
families.
And the next
Yet,
conflict would not
life
begin with
in
tanks
its route.
crossing a border. It would
As the
begin
Cold
with
War
former allies
intensified,
deciding that
Germany
they could
was
no longer
formally
trust one
divided
another.
into two separate states.